1 second. I'll be right. I gotta get my stream or my camera thing working. Oh boy. Sorry, my computer crashed there. Oh. No. Oh boy. Pisco DDS attack. Why is this not working? Let's check C920. There we go, maybe. Alright. No, that's not, there we are. Good stuff. Alright, give me a second. I don't know. If the computer crashes again, then I'll have to do it audio only. But hopefully I'll only be going to 11 o'clock. Anyways, let's see if we can get Pisco on here. 1 second. Okay. Alright, if you can hear me. Can you hear me?
Testing.
Alright, let me see. Alright, I think we're good.
Oh, yeah. How are you, Rob?
Doing great.
That's good to hear. Sorry about your computer problems.
It's no big deal. That's the biggest problems I'm having in life. I'm doing pretty good, so.
That's right. You have an amazing kid.
Yep.
He had an amazing wife. The best kid in the world.
Yeah. He had a second birthday party here last weekend.
Oh, lovely.
And I was not hungover from alcohol. I was a little drunk, but I was fine the next day. What it was my friend smoked cigars, and my pink lungs can't handle them, so I sounded like this for like a day and a half. But
oh, boy.
That's all right. Maybe I need that. My voice is too high-pitched anyway, so.
You think your voice is high-pitched?
Sometimes.
I guess it can be. Mine can be, too, when we get shrill.
Yeah. I think it makes for good, who the hell wants a bunch of Andrew Tates talking, I'm willing to.
Oh, you don't like Andrew Tate?
I'm not a fan, no.
Oh, no? Why? Because do you find him sexist?
No. I mean, probably, but that's not why I don't like him. I think he's a fucking blowhard. Like, I hate this pushback that you get. Like, there's certainly a lot to criticize about our culture, and it's sort of an attack on masculinity. That shit's all true, absolutely. But I don't need the pendulum to swing back that far where it's just an excuse to be a big asshole and, like, a beat-off and then think, like, it's the same thing the Groypers do. Oh, we're tired of people saying that we can't, use edgy words, so we're just going to call Stardust the N-word 50 times in a row. It's like,
oh, yeah. I saw she got unbanned. I also saw that Nick Fuentes is back on Twitter.
Yeah, good times. Yeah. Good times. Well, Stardust, it's funny. It's the same with Dylan. It's the same, right? Like, I've had a rash of people lately that's like, I got banned from YouTube for a day, and then I appealed, and they accepted my appeal. Right, because you're lefties. That shit don't happen to me. When I get banned, I'm banned. That's it. Then I got to shut my channel down for 2 months so the strikes go away.
Well, thankfully, you haven't been banned yet.
Well,
Have you?
No. So, the one time I debated on a panel on trans issues, the following day I got 2 community strikes on my YouTube channel for videos I'd done like 18 months prior. Plus, they removed about 6 videos. So I was at work, so I had to delete everything immediately. So I set my channel to private and deleted 2 years worth of stuff, because if they could go back 18 months, and they didn't tell me why, they just said misinformation. And then my Discord channel, I told you about that, where around the same time that I basically had to self-delete my Discord channel. So, and I appealed all that. It didn't work. They didn't give a shit about my appeal.
Sorry to hear that. I think that there should be some kind of like statute of limitations where they can still take things down, right? And I guess if it were really, truly obscene something like illegal or something, they could ban your account. But I think there should be like a grace period for things that are more in the kind of like subjective area. That like after a certain amount of time, just so we don't have people like destroying their backlogs. At the very least,
I agree.
Yeah.
And you know, even aside from that, like the very first thing they could do is just tell you what you did. Right? That's what's incredibly frustrating.
I don't want to do that though.
Right. I mean, because it's like, okay, listen, like it's kind of funny because the whole Steven Crowder thing, you know, and all that's going on right now. I agree. The censorship sucks. I think that it's bias against people that think like me and just people in general that are questioning the establishment, right? But having said all that, I'm still on the platform. And so I'm like, it's so funny. Like, I don't know if you heard me just talking about January 6th. One of the things I got after January 6th that was hilarious was there were all these right-wingers that were like coming on my channel like, the tree of liberty needs to be refreshed with the blood of tyrants. And they're going on and on about this shit. And I'm like, okay, that's all horseshit. But let's assume for a minute that I secretly believe that. Why would I, who's using my real name, who has a channel, why would I come out and say that and just like that have my channel banned? And probably get it called by the FBI or, you know, local law enforcement. It's like these people, it's so dumb. On a different note, on a completely different note, I might even be, this is so meta, I might be violating what I'm about to say it. As a lawyer, right, what do you think about people that are like, you know, bragging about like, I would vote not guilty on any drug charge, blah, blah, blah. Aren't you kind of, if you're a prosecutor at that point and you find that a potential juror's social media, they've said that, wouldn't you be like, well, strike this you're thereby killing your chance to actually do what you're bragging that you want to do, right?
Yeah, I think that maybe that's the point. I don't know. I guess there are a lot of tactics people use to get out of that stuff.
Well,
there are people who are genuine about that, right? Who will say, I truly think these drug laws are immoral, unethical. There are some crimes that I think could exist where I could conceivably think the same thing, that it's like some crime that just should never be a crime and that I'm so against and so appalled with. It'd have to be like a pretty high bar.
But you wouldn't announce that I'm going to nullify if I'm on the jury.
No, I would not announce it because that's
stupid. That's stupid, right? Like,
unless I'm trying to convince people that there should be more of people like me around, but then you'd have to have some kind of following for it to be worth it in that trade-off, I think, right?
Yes. And real quick, I'll say, because I know we want to talk about another thing that I think's hilarious is I'd love to see a Venn diagram of the people that are like, the government's going to come take my guns, that then announce every single gun they own. Yeah. Right? It's like, so when people ask me what guns I own, I'm like, none of your business. I own guns. That's it. That's all I have to say on the issue. You know,
I think it's therapy for them. I honestly think that a lot of what we see online, both from the right and left, a lot of it is, it's not necessarily even like a smart thing to do or a genuine expression of authentic political views, but it just feels good to say, eat the rich, or like type some horrible, even by our own accounts on the left or the right, way too far of an opinion out there. It just feels fucking good sometimes, I think, for people.
Yeah,
I that's why you get into that, like, you tweeted this, didn't you? And then people don't really defend themselves. I don't even think they're being dishonest when they say, I don't really truly believe that, or they're just finding some way to reconcile that. At that time, it felt really good to be extreme.
Yeah, I mean, and we reward that too. Like, if you're a content creator, that shit's rewarded. Like, if you're trying to, I know how to do it. Like,
you could do it. Yeah.
I could have been a big QAnon person if I didn't give a shit. I could have came on, like, and I would have, the trade-off would have been, I would have got booted off these platforms, but I could have been big on DLive or Rumble, and, you know, like, I'll give you an example. There was that Black Pasture that said about that 6-year-old that shot his teacher, like, you know, if this was a black kid, blah, blah, blah. Well, it turns out it was a black kid. And so then, like, hundreds of thousands of people, like, liking the tweets that are like, okay, dude, you were wrong. And he just comes out and's like, all these people concerned about this kid's skin color, but they think Jesus was white.
Yeah,
it's
like,
desperate. Yeah, that guy knows, like, he's running an angle. Like, he doesn't give a shit. And if you're like a black activist that's concerned, and you're like, yeah, I think there is a double standard, you know, when it comes to conservatives, when they think that the perpetrator is white or black, like, that guy's not your friend. He's not your friend. He's bullshitting you. He's grifting. He doesn't give a shit, you know. And the same's true of people on the right. You know, there are people that do that on the right, and you know, I think that's, to me, what that Crowder story is about. I think the specifics of it, Crowder doesn't look very good, particularly recording.
No, I don't think he does.
Recording his friend and shit like that. But in general, I think that the bigger criticism that he's sort of getting to the heart to is, you know, there's an awful lot of Sean Hannitys in the world that are pretending to give a shit about their constituents that don't give a shit. They're just saying what they think will get them views. That's it. That's what Hannity's doing. He'll tell,
that's kind of my, like, they live and work at a place that I think had vaccine mandates, right? And places where they're 100% are not at liberty to say certain things, and they are even texting things differently than what they're saying out in public. So, yeah, I think that there is these people are being paid to say something. Doesn't mean that there isn't some genuine spring of political thought there, but I think that you always have to keep in mind that not everyone says everything they feel all the time.
Yeah, and I mean,
and I think you do. I think
not always
on some things.
Right.
I think that you hold back on certain COVID issues and certain election issues for fear
and trans issues on Twitch, right?
Okay, yeah.
But listen, like,
you say it right. You will at least say, I am withholding this information, or like, and Sean Hannity won't say that, right?
Right. Well, and it's different with Hannity because, like, Tucker's saying shit, so there's no reason Hannity couldn't, right? Like, but the thing about it is, like, I this is the last thing I'll say about it. I hate having to say that, because then it's like, well, I'm on Twitch right now, for example, so it's like, I don't say everything I think about the trans issue, right? But I'm being honest that I can't say everything, and then you might be like, oh, so Rob's like a bigot that wants to harm trans people. No. Not at all. But I could understand how someone would be like, well, then, if your opinion's not, you know, bigoted or violent, why can't you just say it? Because there are a group of people on this platform that if you say anything, like Sonsol, who is a trans advocate, just said he doesn't believe there's a trans genocide, he gets his Twitch channel nuked for like 2 months. Like, so I just avoid the conversation most of the time, because it's not because I'm a bigot. And you've heard 99% of what I think about trans issues. None of it's, you might disagree with it, but none of it's like we should treat people like crap.
I think even on homosexuality and all the LGBT issues, I don't see you as being someone who thinks that they should have their rights curtailed or anything like that. I think it's more just
most people in my audience, like if I'm debating Andrew, they take Andrew's side in that shit.
Right.
You know, whatever. That's another issue. But all right, the Biden stuff. So speaking of Andrew and them, so I picked that topic the other day, and you know, unfortunately, I don't think anyone was really interested in talking about it other than you. 2 weeks ago in Drunken Debates, Pisco was one of the debaters. The topic was when the scandal was just coming out of Biden having classified documents. And you had said at that point that you did think there should be a special counsel. So do you want to just give like a 5-minute overview or something of like what your thoughts are on this?
Yeah, and I've been getting like eviscerated for this, both in my own Discord, by Destiny. I've had 2 conversations with Destiny now and Ruminate about this topic. And people think that I'm just trying to be enlightened centrist, but without, you know, I guess I don't want to. I just want to let you know that there's a context that this conversation has been happening in public, and these are kind of is where I'm at, really.
I've heard a little of you talking with Destiny. Yeah. I did hear a little bit. But.
Before the appointment of the special counsel, I think a day or two before, when that information was coming out that more documents are found, I think I said that a special counsel should probably be appointed. And then right as the announcement was happening, I praised the announcement and the appointment of a special counsel. Basically, I think the following thing, which is classified information, especially top secret classified information, and like the specialized compartmentalized information, whatever the special, I know it's SCI and there's different designations underneath that. That information, I think, actually is a very legitimate interest in the United States to keep from general knowledge. I think that's really an important national security interest in the United States, is to keep certain information confidential. And I think it makes sense to have crimes that are associated with unauthorized mishandling of that information. I always think that crime should require some kind of like intentional, knowing, or grossly reckless conduct, like approaching the level of the kind of reckless murder standard, where it's just so negligent as to be beyond the pale. But I think it should be a crime. I agree that there's a lot of classification or mishandling aspects that happen almost as a routine basis, right? I agree with that characterization that very often, just because of the nature of our government, how many people are involved, classified information will get to places where they're not supposed to be. But when you're having instances where specific individuals are retaining the most secretive information in their personal residences, places like that, in large quantities, or for potentially a bad purpose, or even just a purpose where they're aware of its existence and there's some knowledge or some reason to believe they might have known about the existence of that information, I think it makes sense to investigate it. It's a crime. It's on the books. I think it should be a crime. I don't think it shouldn't be a crime. I think it should be a crime. And so I think that it's important to investigate those cases. Now, between the... Go ahead. You want to stop me there? Stop me there.
No, okay. So here's what I was going to say. I don't disagree that it should be a crime. The question is, how do we go about the investigation? And so my take on this, like I'm sure you heard me saying this, right? I think that both of us from our initial conversation have been consistent. It's just your consistency is like, yeah, I think they should be special counsels, etc. And mine is neither should be. Mine is basically that I feel that at high levels of people with high clearances, whether it be presidents, vice presidents, people in the intel committees, people at the tops of the FBI, NSA, CIA, I think probably all of them have mishandled classified information. And so the question becomes, if we are going to have if we're going to treat this so serious that we're raiding houses and then releasing photos of the things we found and going so far as to take passports and ball bats and cocktail napkins and things like that, then we have to apply that standard equally. I don't like that standard. I think that, and as I told you when we had this conversation months ago, I think that particularly when it comes to these high-level people like presidents, that what should happen should be every possible avenue should be exhausted. And we can see with the Trump situation, if you read the WAPO story from like March of 2021, maybe? I could link this stuff to you later if you want, but they were talking like Ferriaro is his name, David Ferriaro, who was the head of NARA, said that the day he saw Trump leaving, he saw a white box, and from that point was like, what's in that box? And started going to grand juries to look for potential crimes and things like that. And so it was just, we see the disparate treatment of that compared to someone like Biden or someone like Clinton or someone like Obama or someone like Bush, where we know that they had classified information mishandled, or we matriculate, and yet no one, not even Biden, has received the treatment that Trump had. And the problem is, once you legitimize current presidents weaponizing the DOJ to do those sorts of raids for classified information, then it's a never-ending cycle. There is no reason to expect if a Republican was in office right now, that they shouldn't have gave Biden the exact same treatment and shouldn't have gave Pence the exact same treatment. And if we find out that Obama has a piece of classified information, the exact same treatment. So that's why my preference is they shouldn't do this. However, I will say, if you're consistently like, yeah, I think the treatment should be equal for all of these, if you're mishandling classified information, I don't give a shit, because I want 99% of people in Washington out anyways. And if that means that we just have never-ending investigations into everyone, because, like I told you this last time I talked to you, Philip Mudd, who was high at the CIA, said that every single person with a security clearance at that high level have mishandled classified information. So if it's going to be one of these things that we have a law, and we have overclassification to the point, and a law that exists, that if it was technically enforced, would basically hoover up 80% of Washington, I say go for it. It's not my preference, but you have to be one way or the other. You either have to say that it's legitimate to go after Trump and Biden, or it's not legitimate to go after either. That's my take on it.
Yeah, and in response to that, first of all, let me give my high-level take, my TLDR, and so that you can just guys know I won't bury the lead here, and then I'll sort of address some of the stuff you said. So, burying the lead, I said that between the two cases, Trump and Biden, the obstruction-related conduct of Trump clearly and emphatically distinguishes the misconduct, if you're looking at in terms of like the person involved there, right? Without getting into the actual discussions about declassification either on Biden's side or Trump's side, if you're just taking the allegations of fact as presented, I think that what has been released from the Trump investigation with respect to obstruction stuff clearly and strongly distinguishes the two matters. However, I do not think we have sufficient information for us to feel confident coming to the conclusion just yet that we can clearly clearly distinguish just the mishandling aspect of it, which of course is the origin for the reason why there was an obstruction related investigation in the first place with Trump. And so clearly I think that the mishandling aspect is a significantly important aspect in and of itself to be worth separating and looking at independently. And so does the media, frankly, because I think that for the longest time, yes, the conversation has been partly about obstruction and a lot about obstruction, but the conversation without question, in my opinion, frankly, has also been about the mishandling aspect. And for people like Destiny and Ruminate to deny that, I think is like, you're just not really handling the public discourse, and you're not really paying attention, or you're purposely misleading. You saw how many stories about how dangerous the mishandling was, the trading of nuclear secrets, that kind of stuff, which to me indicates that the underlying mishandling aspect is significant in and of itself to compare the different cases without necessarily being, I think, led astray by the other important aspect which is the obstruction-related investigation. Yes, it's important when you're looking at the totality of things, when you're coming to a conclusion about the matters to consider that. But when you're just looking at the base level kind of offense there, I think it's important to separate them just for the purpose of really, I don't know, getting our bearings straight.
Okay.
I don't know if you agree with that.
So here's the thing. First off, you're not wrong that there are people talking about the serious nature of this, even on traditional media, mainstream media outlets. They're doing that just like they talked about Al Franken. They are selective because they think that they could cut Biden loose, and that they have evaluated that it's worth sacrificing him to get Trump, or it's worth sacrificing him to get a better candidate in 2024, or it's worth sacrificing him.
Oh, really?
Yes, that's my belief. That they understand that, like, okay, we don't need Biden. He's dead weight at this point. He's always been, but he's sort of outlived his usefulness. And maybe they're saying this to save face themselves because they just made a big hubbub about how important this mishandling of classified information. I will give you
real quick. Just say this is where I think other people who would debate you would say conspiracy theory. And what would you say in response?
Well, you could call it a conspiracy theory, but I would say the same thing. You would probably say the same thing, for example, if Tucker Carlson came out and said, you know, for example, if we found out that Don Jr. was also at Burisma, right? Tucker Carlson would probably come out and be like, yeah, that's bad too. And someone like you would be like, of course Tucker's going to say that because he's so interested in getting the current president, and he hyped on that for so long that now that almost the exact same things happen the other side, he don't really give a shit about it. He's just saying because he feels that he has to. And it's so you can call me a conspiracy. It doesn't evaluate into like what any of my thinking on this issue, but that's what's happening.
I guess what you're saying. So if what you're saying is like the reaction to it is being they're using it in a way that's predictable, not because they actually care about the issue or they're actually being consistent, because they're using this crisis that's not of their own making, but they're using it because they see Biden has outlived his usefulness in a kind of.
I think that could be part of it. And again, each individual might be different, but in general, I think the overarching themes are that they view it as better to keep this issue in the public, and so it would harm Trump more than it helps or hurt more than it would harm Biden, or it would harm them equally, and they're okay with that because they see Biden as either an albatross around their neck or someone who's can be sacrificed, and it would also diminish their own credibility, right? They're trying, particularly CNN. CNN is making a conscious effort to try to be like more of the mainstream Democrat, less rabid anti-Trump, right? They're trying to be like, well, hey, we're holding both sides accountable now. Like, there is a lot of people, I think, in that landscape that understand that they have beclowned themselves basically with their rabid anti-Trumpism for 6 years. And so now it's like, okay, we're going to push back on the other side so we can say, see, we're, and it wouldn't be done before the election. They weren't going to do that. There were no intrepid reporters saying, geez, all of these bigwigs that are saying how bad it is that Trump had classified information. Maybe I'll look in to see if that's the case. Right? No one was doing that. They didn't give a shit. But now that it's safe right after the election, I don't think that it's. But nonetheless, like we could talk about that all day. I don't know that really. There were some other things you said that were interesting.
Yeah, I wanted to address other things you said, which is, I think that I would also separate. I'm in the mood of separating things. The investigation itself and the particular investigatory steps that are required or needed. So obviously I'm going to distinguish in terms of the response of the DOJ to Trump, which is a execution of a warrant where they're essentially raiding his home and searching for things without consent, as opposed to Biden's house where they obtained consent and they never got a search warrant. The reason why they might take one step or the other doesn't necessarily have to do with the underlying mishandling aspect. There could be two crimes, one of which is way worse than another crime. Let's say you kill someone, but you're like, oh, you know what? You search my house, you can find the body there, and you're just cooperating. They never need to get a search warrant, right? Then maybe they'll get one anyway, just in case, but they wouldn't need to. Versus a crime, let's say you're just I don't know, you've stolen some piece of property, but you're just not cooperating, and they have some reason to believe that the stolen property is in your home, but you're just not cooperating, even though the murder is. They might execute a search warrant, notwithstanding the underlying misconduct being insanely worse for the murderer than the robber. And so I do not think that the execution of a search warrant tells you that there's a double standard. You have to find out why the search warrant was obtained in the first place.
But you don't know. You right, and you don't know why the search warrant was obtained with Trump. We're just taking the word of people that have been so corrupt over and over again. Even if we just look at this in a vacuum, right? Even if we just look at the DOJ and the FBI in a vacuum, do you think it was cool that they released that photo of all this stuff?
That was part of a filing, wasn't it?
Yeah, but it was released. It was released to the media, right? We know why it was released. You know why it was. Do you think it was cool that...
I do not remember the circumstance of its release.
It was released...
I thought it was with a filing.
Right.
I'm not so sure that there was an intent to smear him.
Will there be a filing on the documents that were sent by Biden?
I assume that Biden will not start a civil case in a jurisdiction which require or where it's
okay, so let me do this. Let me do this. Let's take that aside. Then we won't focus on that aspect of it. Yeah. Here's what we will focus on. That was so antagonistic that the person at NARA that started the investigation is a never Trumper that said January 6th was the worst day in his life. Who said the day that Trump left office that he was skeptical and wanted to investigate immediately. That same person's reaction when it came to Biden was 6 years of having no clue that he had improperly stored these documents. Then we had that there was cooperation efforts that were done from Trump immediately where they let people come into his home and look at all this stuff, actually let them go through it, actually gave them access to security cameras, actually allowed them to put locks on the door and all of that. There seemed to be some sort of communication. These people that were antagonistic in that sense, right? Then we look at the Biden investigation and what they did the entire time would say, well, we'll leave you look for over a month. They also kept it under wraps that this sort of thing had occurred. We know that the DOJ asked... The DOJ wanted the FBI to go in, but instead they asked and decided that the FBI wouldn't go in, and they would allow the Biden administration to look for these documents themselves. The Biden administration routinely said, we have all the documents, only to continually find new documents, right? So what happens is that, the idea of, well, one side obstructed and the other didn't. It's the same with the Russiagate investigation. Right. If we had a massive turn your life upside down for other presidents and for other elected officials over bogus bullshit charges, at some point you might be able to goad them into potential obstruction by saying, I don't like this, I'm pissed, I'm going to fire the FBI director because he won't acknowledge that I'm not the target of the investigation. Or if they continually said, we think you have more there, now we're issuing a warrant, right? There would seem to be attempts at, it would seem like obstruction when you fight back against that reasonably. When that organization is all in on your side, as we've seen evidence of the FBI and the DOJ dossier before, then yes, there's not going to be obstruction because you could trust that they're not going to go through your wife's underwear drawer and things like that, like they were doing with the Trump team. So constantly what we see, I'll finish real quick. We constantly see the FBI treat people that are connected to Trump as aggressively as possible. People that are connected to Democrats or other intel apparatuses treated as lightly as possible. And then the difference that people say is like, obstruction, look at Trump's reaction. Right, the Democrats' reaction would be even worse, if not the same, because they aren't used to having the home raided and things like that. We saw all through Russiagate, and it continues when it comes to the raid of Mar-a-Lago versus Biden.
Yeah, so to address what you just said, I think that my comments were, in that specific thing you were responding to, tailored to the use of the warrant, not necessarily the investigation relating to obstruction. The obstruction, I think, that's accused of happened before the raid occurred.
What was the accusation? Go ahead. What was the accusation?
Yeah, so the premise of the warrant, the evidence for which they were seeking, the crimes for which they were seeking evidence, related both to the mishandling and the obstruction stuff.
What was the obstruction? Yeah,
so I'm about to explain it. The obstruction predated, right? The accusation of obstruction predated the warrant. So now what we don't know everything, right? Because a lot of the affidavit that's attached to the warrant is redacted, and a lot of the most important stuff is redacted. But it's something like this, which is you were under a federal criminal subpoena, right? A grand jury subpoena, to produce all documents with classified markings, right? And if you made an effort to withhold documents, right? This would be the same or burn documents or delete evidence, right? There's a Hillary Clinton case. I don't know if it's giving you echoes of that case. I'm sure it is. If that is done for a corrupt intent, and we can show that there's evidence in Mar-a-Lago that Trump was aware of something, that there's an email somewhere, so some kind of physical indication that he was aware of certain the presence of certain documents when the subpoena was issued, then that would constitute the obstruction.
But we don't have any evidence that occurred.
Well, we do. Or we're sorry. Let me. That, based on public reporting, there's evidence of that, right?
But no, based on public reporting, what has the public reporting has just said? Well, there must have been corruption because there's allegations. What I heard was this. This is the report I heard. Someone within the Trump home said there's still documents there. That's the most I've heard.
We don't even know that, but let's say that that's true, right? Let's say that that's true. That there was an informant who said something like, "Hey, I know that you had this warrant, that you had the subpoena, and I know that the lawyers said that they were giving you everything, but I know for a fact that..."
Can you pause just 1 second?
Yeah.
I'll be right back.
Yeah.
Yeah, bud. Okay. Yeah. Sorry about that. Go ahead. You still there?
Sorry, I was muted. My bad.
Okay. Yeah.
So let's say that there was a witness who was... The basis of the warrant was you had a witness who's known, who's like a Trump insider or something, who said, "I know for a fact there's more documents, even though they told you that there wasn't, and even though there's a subpoena out for them. And I know that they know that there's more documents." That would be, I think, a pretty compelling case for obstruction, right? That's something where we were arguing about the Hillary case. If someone was willing to say, Hillary, she ordered the deletion, or she ordered them not to hand over, or told them to hide certain documents and she knew that they were under subpoena, that would be a pretty strong case for obstruction. And that's what I think we're arguing about, is whether who knew what when, whether it's plausible.
We don't. But again, what you can see, so like all it would take was one person within the Biden administration to say, "I still think there's documents there," and then you would say, "Okay, that's obstruction. Now raid." That's what you would say.
No. Hang on. To establish obstruction in a criminal court, I could see it conceivably being based on one person's testimony, but I think that let's especially let's say that it was Melania Trump, right? I can see a situation in which a singular person could be the basis of a conviction, but for probable cause being a low standard.
Okay. So I have a couple because we don't have all night, right?
Yeah.
Was Biden ever subpoenaed for these documents, to your knowledge?
To my knowledge, Biden was not subpoenaed for the document.
Why the double standard in that Trump's team was subpoenaed? In fact, they went to a grand jury in February, not a month after Trump left office, trying to get these subpoenas, whereas Biden sat on these documents for more than 6 years. Even after the initial classified were found, it doesn't appear that Biden was subpoenaed. Why the double standard?
So, two reasons. I wouldn't call it double standard. Why the two reactions? Why the two materially different investigatory tools used? Because I don't actually think it's a double standard in this particular case. Number one is, I don't think that the relevant agencies knew that Biden had classified information.
Right.
And
they didn't give a shit.
Why is it that they didn't know? And I think there are reasons why they were aware that Trump had presidential records. I don't think that I don't think that NARA was aware they had classified information until Trump gave them a bunch of boxes of presidential records. That's how it started. I don't think we knew that Trump had classified information mixed in with the records or alongside the records until NARA sifted through some 15 boxes or something like that.
Real quick, can I stop you here? NARA would also be interested in records like vice presidential records, which could fall under the president. Okay, so if you were NARA, and I just want you to be as honest as possible, if you were NARA, would you assume that every president and vice president leaving is probably taking stuff that they shouldn't? Even if it's not classified, they're taking some sort of presidential.
As a matter of just running the agency well, yes.
Okay, so then they immediately then sought to go to a grand jury and get subpoenas because they knew that Trump must have presidential.
No. I don't think that just because you should, as a default assumption, assume that principals are, that you should look to them because they probably will be taking something, or at least mistaken about certain things being records or whatever. Keep in mind, there's some question even on Trump's, I think, legal team who says that the president himself gets to decide what is presidential and what is, personal. I think that's kind of silly. So I think that there should be, as a matter of course, that NARA goes towards the principal and says, like, what are you taking? And let me see what you're taking. But just because one person has government records with them doesn't mean that NARA should automatically have known about that, or that NARA should, as a matter of course, issue subpoenas. Not that they should try to obtain subpoenas.
So then what was it so Trump leaves office on January 20th, right? In January, the National Records Administration go into Mar-a-Lago and took 15 boxes of records.
Yeah, so I think that what set them off were, based on public reporting, that obvious things were missing, number one. That where's the Kim Jong-un letters? Where are the Obama letter to Trump? Stuff like that, where NARA knows that these documents exist because we all know, we knew. We
don't have to guess because the director said, and I'm quoting, this is according to the Washington Post, as we were moving materials from the White House just before the inaugurations, boxes hadn't shown up. When I watched Trump's team leaving the White House and giving off in the helicopter that day, someone was carrying a white banker box, and I saying to myself, what the hell's in that box? That began the whole process of trying to determine whether any records had not been turned over to the archives. Yeah. So I wonder, do you think he was watching Biden's team carrying boxes out and saying, I wonder what's in that box?
I have no earthly idea.
I bet he wasn't. And once more, just like with the Russiagate stuff, where it just so happened that all the people that were running it were in their text messages and stuff saying how much they wanted Hillary to win and how much they want Trump to lose. This guy happened to be saying the same thing. How much he hated Trump, how bad Trump supporters were, how January 6th was the worst day of his life. And then days after that, right, he's like, I wonder what's in that box. Let's go get a subpoena. It's bullshit, and you know it. You know that it's a double.
I don't think that because someone, his initial suspicion was from looking and observing someone taking a box, that therefore that somehow is an improper start to an inquiry within the administration. Like, do we have everything?
Okay.
And then noticing that you're missing stuff. I don't think. What's wrong with NARA behaving that way? What's wrong with NARA?
Because they only expressed interest when it's Trump. Let me ask you this. So you're telling me, let's say that if hypothetically, 3 months after Biden leaves, they're like, hey, we suspect these documents are missing. And someone says, yeah, I saw boxes being carried by Biden's VP team as they were moving out of the White House. And so he communicates with them and says, NARA communicates with Biden and says, hey, could you look for these documents, right? Okay, you follow me so far? And then they look and they say, they
ask Biden to look for documents.
Yes,
right?
And that Biden's team's like, yeah, we found one document. Here you go. It was classified. And they're like, okay, is there any more? And they're like, no, that's it. And then a month later, they're like, oh, we found 3 more in a different location. Why is there no subpoena then?
Wait. So, in the Biden hypothetical case that you're talking about,
right?
If there is an indication that Biden, first of all, that there is a reason to believe that Biden is not complying with the mere requests of NARA, right? Let's say that NARA says, give us the letter, give us this Obama letter, and you just like, don't do it, right? Then in that case, right, if you're not complying with NARA, that could be a basis under which you would maybe inform the DOJ. Or if NARA has some reason to believe that from the documents that are missing, that there's further classified information missing, that might also justify.
But but the evidence would be when you're like, the first time they're like, air is classified, you would say, okay, we want everything, go through everything. And then when they're like, okay, so November 2nd at the Penn Biden Center, they find it classified, right? So then they keep that under wraps. Then about a month and a half later, December 20th, they find more. Okay. Then January 11th, they find more. Then January 12th, they find more. Then January 20th, they find more. Still no subpoena? Now, you said the subpoena was justified in the Trump situation because they had reason to suspect that there was things that were not being gone over. It wasn't necessarily to get that subpoena that they had to prove that they were going to do something unethical with these documents, right? They could get the subpoena.
About the retrieval of documents.
Right. So if we know, then if that subpoena helped in the retrieval process, and we now know that it is clear that the Biden team doesn't know what the fuck they're doing, because they've told us over and over, that was it, and then we find more a month and a half later. Now we're finding more, it seems, on a weekly basis. Why wouldn't a subpoena be issued?
I don't agree with your characterization of the search, because I think, first of all, the Biden team has been inconsistent, as you noted, on when the searches happened and under whose authority they happened. And so that's the thing. One of the reasons why I'm troubled by the Biden case is because the response from Biden's team has been inconsistent. I think that's true. It's a matter of record. But in terms of your, any statements or affirmations made that this represents all of the documents, I think one of the criticisms of Biden has been that he hasn't made that.
Okay, I disagree, Jen. Jean-Pierre said, I can pull up the audio if you want. When she was asked, She said that, that's all, right? That was before the last 2 batches have been found, the January 12th and the January 20th. She's
like the press secretary.
What?
I understand.
She's the public voice of the president.
Wait, hang on. But I will look for that statement where she said that's all of them. My understanding of one of the criticisms of Biden is that no one on the team is willing to say, okay, that's all of it.
Okay, then why not a subpoena?
So a subpoena would be necessary, right? If you believe for some reason that people are not going to comply with you. It's a court order to produce things. But if people are producing documents to you, and you have no reason to believe that they're withholding or that why would you go about getting a subpoena?
Because why is it? You said that you think that this is a serious crime, right? That it could actually jeopardize national community. It could jeopardize national security, etc. So there are consequences to this, right? So if you knew that documents were found November 2nd, and then January 20th, they're still finding documents, And not only are they finding documents, they're literally in a garage. And then when talking about it, the president was like, yeah, they're locked next to my Corvette. Don't you think that they would be saying, what are we going to do just perpetually for the next 6 years? Let them slowly trickle out. Oh, we found another. We found another here. And you'll say, well, that's compliance. They're still trickling this out. Isn't there a fear that they could mishandle classified information again? That someone could improperly store it?
True.
That someone could... Let me finish real quick. They could improperly store, or they might not be able to accurately determine what is a vice presidential record or a presidential record or what is classified. Wouldn't that justify a subpoena? Wouldn't that justify the FBI going in and doing it for them? Why are we relying on the people that have been so haphazard that they moved the documents to several locations and stored them next to a Corvette in a garage? Don't you think if this is such a serious situation that the FBI should raid?
I do not think we should be relying on Biden administration officials just to do the searches. I think it's good that the Department of Justice asked to search the residence and that Biden agreed to allow them to search the residence. I think that is perfectly proper. I agree with you. Given the number of mistakes, the additional documents found, all of that, in my opinion, necessitates or makes it very important for there to be a search of the places for where those documents could be. I agree with that. And I totally agree with that being the case. What we were talking about was the subpoena. For me, if you're going to the subpoena is just putting a little bit of force of law behind it, and saying that you got to give this to us, and it's pressure that you're applying to someone to say, hey, give us to this by this date. I just don't see how that's necessary. I mean, Biden's the one who, Biden's team is the one who brought this to the attention of the DOJ in the first place. I do not think that if we were concerned about them doing horrible shit, why would we expect them to bring it up in the first place?
The Wall Street Journal is reporting, this is from January 17th, Wall Street Journal article. Wall Street Journal is reporting the DOJ declined to have the FBI conduct searches and instead allowed uncleared private counsel to do so. If true, that's a level of accommodation that would make Kardashian blush.
No, they just did a search, first of all. If you're talking about the November search, there's been inconsistent statements from the Biden on the initial November search of documents. Which I don't know if that's true. So they first found documents, I believe, in the office or whatever, and then the attorneys conducted a search, I believe, but that the statements have been inconsistent, I believe, conducted a search of the Biden residence, and now recently the DOJ has conducted a search of Biden's home.
Right, but initially, right, so you had, this started in November 2nd, right, then more documents were found in December, and the FBI and DOJ didn't start investigating until well into January. Why wouldn't they?
True.
That is true. So your claim is that the DOJ went in, so I just want to get your record here, so let me look up the timeline here again. So these are the days we know that they found documents, that it was reported November 2nd, December 20th, January 11th, January 12th, and January 20th. Your claim is after November 2nd, the DOJ said, hey, can we send the FBI in? And they were like, yeah, that's what
No. I thought you had said that the investigation started in January. The referral to DOJ happened on November 4th.
Right.
And so the DOJ started its investigation at that time. Merrick Garland.
Right. My question is, so you tell me when your time frame is when the DOJ said, "Excuse me, President, we would like to come search your home," and he said, "Yep." Can you tell me when that was?
When they searched the home?
Yes.
When they searched the home, I believe that was in January.
So in November,
hang on, that could be December too. Hang on. The search happened on the 20th of January, 4 days ago.
Right. So that means that they allowed. So let's go through the list again. Ready?
Yeah.
All right. So these people grossly mishandled classified information. We know they moved it from the White House to a location, then to the Wilmington house, right? It's been gone for 6 years. It was next to a Corvette in a garage, and it was at the Penn Biden Center that gets all sorts of money from China and stuff. So November 2nd, right? November 2nd, then they open an investigation November 4th, but they still don't investigate. They don't go in and check. Then December 20... No,
Wait. Sorry, they don't search... Okay, but again, right?
But you keep interrupting. Let me finish. So, right, like the semantic doesn't matter. They see November 2nd. Oh, this is troubling. Very serious information that hasn't been in the Penn Biden Center, right? Then a month and a half later, December 20. So they open the DOJ investigation, like Merrick Garland does. Then December, they still don't go in and check. Then December 20th. Oh boy, we found more at Biden's house. They still don't go in and check. Then January 11th. Oh boy, we found more in Biden's house. They still don't go in and check. Then January 12th. Oh boy, we found more at Biden's house. They still don't go in and check. Finally, on January 20th, they go in and they find more documents. Why did it take them over 2 months?
Let's talk about it. So, I believe that it wasn't until December that the DOJ found documents in late December in Biden's residence. Sorry, DOJ didn't find it. The lawyers found it.
December 20th,
lawyers
yes.
Went through the garage and found it. And at that point, the special counsel, I believe, here at the timeline I'm looking at, New York Times timeline, it said January 5th, Mr. Lausch, which is the U.S. attorney in Chicago, for Illinois, said that a special counsel was warranted. So it does look that the investigation is ramping up. But again, I don't know that like a search warrant is needed at this stage, given the level of cooperation of the administration. Given the level of cooperation, the fact that they brought it up in the first place, they're the ones who alerted the DOJ.
No, that's outrageous. So you don't know that first.
That's outrageous.
Yes, you don't know. But
we're relying on public reporting right now. We're relying on public reporting,
right? For all we know, that a whistleblower inside spoke up, and that's what pressured Biden and them to do it. That they wouldn't have done so on their own. We don't know, but it doesn't matter anyways, because it is belied by the fact that even if it wasn't intentional, at this point you're saying that the reason that this is a crime in the first place is because the underlying documents are sensitive, and if
first of all, I don't know that it's a crime. I said that it's a serious matter. It should be investigated.
Well, the mishandling of classified information is a crime. You said it is something. This was your entire opening. You said these things should be crimes. I misunderstood
you. Wait, Rob, I'll clear it up real quick. I thought you said this is a crime, referring to the facts. Yes, it's a criminal investigation, but when you said this is a crime, I thought you said that it's I agreed or established that it
what I'm saying is that you said that it should be a crime to mishandle classified information and misstore it because you didn't go into it all, but it could jeopardize national security, it could jeopardize lives, right? Okay, so clearly the DOJ finds that to be the case. They clearly found it the case to go after Trump. Okay, so then they see this sensitive information November 2nd and they're like, nah, we'll leave these people that have been so negligent, we'll leave them rifle through stuff themselves. Then they find out again, even if you allowed that, right, once they found more in December in a second location, don't you think that people that were taking this seriously would have said, okay, now we're going to look. We're not going to trust you people to do it. Then when they found more documents January 11th, don't you think at that point they'd say, okay, now we're really going to go look? Because
you understand the scope, like the investigatory tools that you're going to use, it's not going to be a general warrant at this stage of the investigation. What I mean by that is like, just because there was documents found at the Penn Biden Center for Diplomacy and Global Engagement, assume on November 2nd that you know that information. You think it's justified to get a warrant to search Biden's house?
Yes, given that they did so at Mar-a-Lago.
No. For Mar-a-Lago, they had specific.
It doesn't matter. I don't give a shit. I don't give a shit that you're attempting to excuse once more the double standard of the FBI. I don't care about that.
Hang on,
they in an unprecedented way. For example, they also knew that Clinton had tapes in a sock drawer. They never got a subpoena. They never raided them.
That's presidential records. And first of all, those were determined not to be presidential records. Those were determined to be.
It doesn't matter. Records. We know. You already admitted that. We could assume when it comes to presidential records that everyone improperly stores them, and we could probably assume the same with classified information.
As a matter of the general course of things and how it should operate, I think you should run with the assumption that people are taking things incorrectly and that you should follow up with people. But I don't know that everyone has violated it, though I will tell you that a presidential records violation that ultimately I think that property belongs to the United States and that should be returned.
Nonetheless, right, what we can see is they started the new standard with the raid on Trump. They started.
No.
Yes, they did. Okay, they didn't. Can you tell me a time where they've raided a president's house? Go ahead.
They haven't before.
Right, so they started a standard when it came to Trump that it was okay in the name of national security, that we thought that there was a chance that Trump, through improper reasons, and the subpoena wasn't just because they were like, it doesn't have to be just because they're like, Trump's selling nuclear secrets. It could be, we think that his team's not doing a good enough job of getting us these documents, and so we're going to go in and take the fucking documents. Even though they were already in there. Now, keep in mind, they already, before the subpoena, right, they already went in with the DOJ and the FBI previously, before they got this warrant to have the FBI have a warrant. They went in previously and were invited and looked through everything.
I think that's the reason why they issued a subpoena in the first place, is that they went in there, or at least issued the warrant. They went in there, presumably, and they were given misinformation. Whether or not you think that's lying, but they were given incorrect information.
The question is, why did they go in the first place, but they didn't in the case of Biden? That's the question.
So just because a warrant is justified against a president, an ex-president, because they have evidence that a particular location is housing evidence potentially of a crime, doesn't mean that just because there's a potential criminal investigation of president, that a warrant is warranted at the current president's home. Because you need to have additional information.
Okay, so let's take presidents out of it. Let's take presidents out of it. Let's say that robnoerr, regular person, yeah. Call and say, hey, I was in DC and I found some folders or whatever, and I accidentally grabbed these folders and brought them home with me. And here's a classified document I took. Mm-hmm. And they're like, oh, okay. Well, look and see if you have more. I'm like, will do. Get back to you in a month and a half. And then I go, yep, there were more. Here's another. And they go, well, thank you very much. Do you have any more? And I say, yeah, I'll get back to you. And then a month and a half later, I'm like, yep, I found more. And they're like, oh, okay, is there any more? No. And then the next day I go, yep, different. I found more.
No. That's literally, when I say that's different, I mean, like, that is a different example than what you're talking about Biden doing, right?
How's that?
In the Biden, I'll explain it. So in the particular case you're saying, yeah, absolutely, right? After the second one, you're getting a warrant. The government should be searching that property because clearly this person cannot be trusted to conduct the search themselves. Agreed. Absolutely agreed. Rob, you understand that I agree with you.
Okay.
That if you have, you give them
now do Biden information. Gotcha.
Okay. So Biden's, right? The first documents are from the Penn Biden Center. You give it
okay.
Why are you laughing?
Okay. I know where you're going. Let me slightly change my example here. So the first time I say, oh, I found the documents at my home. And then a month and a half later, I'm like, oh shit, I found them at my parents' home. I went there for Thanksgiving. I found them there. You'd say, oh, okay, no need to have the FBI come search themselves. It was two different locations.
No. At that point, I think it would make sense for the government also to investigate and also to be conducting additional searches of that person. And
now do Biden.
Now I'm going to do Biden. After the November 2nd disclosure, I don't think that a warrant is justified against President Biden or even a search of his property.
December 20th.
But after December 20th, I think it becomes necessary for the government to conduct a search of Biden's home.
Why didn't they?
They did.
No, they didn't. On January 20th. Why would they wait that long?
Presumably to appoint a special counsel, to continue discussions with this investigation of the sitting president, continue discussions with Biden's team. Mm-hmm. I'm not privy to the conversations. Right. I don't think that the delay. Well, what do you think the delay is for? Do you think the delay is for them to abscond with shit?
I think the delay is because they're not serious about an investigation. I think the delay is because they want Biden to look into things himself, and they'll be happy with whatever he finds. And then once the story got out of hand, when it was released, when it was like, holy fuck, this guy keeps finding stuff. They keep finding stuff. At some point, they were like, look, man, we're not going to raid you, but can you leave us just like... By the way, it's the same thing that happened with Trump, where they asked Trump and he allowed them to come in and look, and they found stuff. What are you going to do? Let's go further.
They kept going back to the same spot. They kept going back
to
the
cool.
same
What if they find...
place,
So you're confident they won't find any more, correct?
No, I'm not confident.
Oh, well, what if they do? Do you think that would? At what point would it justify some sort of warrant or something like that?
No, the fact that they're continuing to uncover stuff to me is indication that they're uncovering more shit, right? And that they're not being stymied, right, by a lack of.
Okay, so if they don't find anything in the next month, then you'll think that they're being stymied.
If there's a reason to believe that that Biden is withholding things, or that there's nothing, that there's a reason to get the warrant, there has to be a reason to execute the warrant. If he's letting them everywhere, just he's giving them what a warrant would give them, right, willingly. If he's doing and just like letting them search wherever he wants to search, then there's no reason, right? If there's a place, then Biden's like, no.
How would we know? The FBI is never going to say they're on Biden's side. They're never going to come out and say he wouldn't leave us in this place. Did they search Joe Biden's underwear drawer?
I mean, they say that they searched his entire residence.
But we need to know. We know that they searched Melania's underwear drawer, right? We know that.
Do we? When was that disclosed?
It was disclosed
by Trump, I think, maybe, right?
It might have
Trump
been.
said it.
Though I think what we've seen released said that they were searching.
Well, they
her
found
room.
Crazy shit like in weird places in the Trump case.
Oh, they didn't in Biden's. I mean, they were next to that Corvette.
No, but they found shit. They found weird shit in Biden's case too. I think I think Biden's whole house should be searched.
Right. I think Joe Biden. We need to know about Joe Biden's underwear drawer. I agree. I won't be. I don't feel safe in this country. I don't feel safe until we know what was found in Joe Biden's underwear drawer.
You laugh, but like I understand you laugh, but if a document were found in Joe Biden's underwear drawer, wouldn't that be a smoking gun?
Of what?
Of knowledge and intent.
How?
Presumably someone uses their underwear drawer with relative frequency, unless you're just not or buying new underwear every time. And so the strongest defense that Biden is going to be, and the one that every Democrat is relying on this entire time, right? So if you listen to my discussion with Destiny, the thing that he kept saying was, well, we know Trump had the intent. He had the knowledge of classified information, right? You've heard this story before, right?
We don't.
And we just don't have... Hang on, I'm getting there. That's what Destiny was saying, right? I was the one pushing back, right? That let the investigations finish, all that stuff. And he was saying, well, we don't have that same evidence of Biden's intent. Well, he can't say that if it's in his underwear drawer.
Okay.
Right?
Well, then we need it. Well, then I assume we'll see filings. We'll see what the documents released. And the other thing is, like, as we talked about, so we went through the 4 stages, right, that would justify the raid in Mar-a-Lago. Let's see if I can remember all of them. One, it was that the severity of what was saying had to cross a threshold of severity, which I don't think it does, having classified information. You did. You thought that like crossed the threshold of severity. Second, we said that all options needed to be exhausted. So you don't just go out and get the subpoena immediately. You don't go to a grand jury immediately. You try to cooperate, right? Okay, that was second. The third was looking in the raid. I can't remember, but the fourth would be that the scope of the raid and what they ended up taking would have been narrow, right? That they were looking for specific stuff, and we saw that that was clearly not the case with Trump. They took ball bats, cocktail napkins, passports, etc. So
I have a specific response to those, but I do just the 4 things. It was severity, it was a level of certainty, right?
Right, that was one of the
certainty. Yeah. It was how no less intrusive alternatives, and the fourth was kind of just a general kind of like legal gestalt, which is the warrants have to be sufficiently particularized. There has to be it cannot be a general warrant, right? I would not want a general warrant of Donald Trump. A general warrant of Donald Trump would be like, go look at every single property Donald Trump owns, go through every single document Trump has in Trump Tower, right? Even though there's no reason to believe that stuff is in Trump Tower, that would be like a general warrant. So the fourth, I kind of combined the kind of legal, constitutional things that everyone, including the president, should have access to, which would include having like not an unreasonable warrant. I disagree with you that the application for the warrant is facially unconstitutional because it's overly broad or overly non-particularized or whatever. But that's just kind of, I guess, a legal debate that we have.
Right.
But yeah, those were kind of the things I looked to, and
then we talked about we talked about this is what the narrow scope, right? Here's what. Real quick, let's read what the warrant said. Right. This is from Attachment B, property to be seized. Quote, all physical documents and records constituting evidence, contraband, fruits of crime, or other items illegally possessed in violation of 3 statutes, including the following. 1. Any physical documents with classification markings, along with any containers, boxes, including any other contents in which such documents are located, as well as any containers and boxes that are collectively stored or found together with aforementioned documents and or containers and boxes. So basically, if there's a box in the same closet, then we'll take it. Second, information including communications in any form regarding the retrieval, storage, or transmission of national defense information or classified material. Third, any government and or presidential records created between January 20, 2017 and January 20, 2021. Fourth, any evidence of the knowing alteration, destruction, or concealment of any government or presidential records or of any documents with classification markings. So that's so broad that it's literally, and we saw how it was, we saw what happened. They took his passport, they took cocktail napkins, right?
Well, I disagree. So, one, I disagree that warrant is overly broad, given what I'm going to say right now. First of all, I think the intermingling of personal items is highly, highly relevant, and their recovery is highly relevant because they speak to, again, knowledge and intent. If Biden has his underwear next to the classified documents, or the president records, or whatever that is, that makes it more likely, right? If you have something that let's say you use a lot, or that's on display, or that's intermingled with things that you might use, like your passports, that gives you some indication that you are aware of the things that are next to it, right?
Fair enough. Okay, fair enough then. Let's put our clairvoyant hat on. Let's look into the future. Yeah. So if you find out 6 months from now that the DOJ did go into Biden's home, if they didn't take his Corvette, if they didn't take all of his belongings in the garage, you'll say that's outrageous. They should have took all that stuff because the intermingling of that stuff in with the location of these classified files is something that's important to look at. And you would say that's a double standard if they don't take those things, correct?
So in the case of the search conducted at the Biden's residence, first of all, I do not know. We don't have an inventory yet of everything taken, number one. If they didn't take it, presumably that's because they're giving access to it, right? And there's no like time crunch or anything for them to.
That's outrageous. Knows, right? You said that it had to do with intent,
and also, that material, the material that it's like I guess properly in his possession, and especially his passport. I think the passport was returned to him. Not sure about the other stuff. To the extent that they're like written documents that need to be reviewed, then obviously it would make sense to retain those. Then if they didn't do that with Biden, that would be problematic.
But they didn't just take written
bat,
right? Cocktail napkin, baseball bat,
right? So like if it's a baseball bat and a cocktail napkin, I think that it would be problematic potentially if the DOJ did not take that stuff as evidence, presumably to potentially use in a future potential like indictment or trial situation if it were to come to that, which I don't.
Okay, so then we'll see. Right, we'll see. And I look forward to having you on saying, yeah, that looked like a double standard, because maybe I'll eat crow, but I suspect that they did not take those sorts of materials from Biden's home or from the Penn Biden Center. That'll be my suspicion. I suspect that they didn't take cocktail napkins and articles of clothing and baseball bat souvenirs and passports.
You
and things
could understand why why it would be relevant. Let's say that in his safe, right, there was Biden's 2022 speech to the State of the Union or whatever, and it was right next to, and you could very clearly see that Biden had signed it or whatever. And but that speech obviously is not classified information, whatever, he's allowed to have it. But if they did not recover that speech, that could be problematic for authentication purposes, right? You take a picture of the fact that it was found with the classified documents, and then you take the actual document itself. So if it ever came to it, you'd say something like this. You'd say, is this the you bring on the agent. You said, isn't it true that da-da-da-da-da? And did you take a picture that day? Yes, I did. And what did you find that day? I found classified information. And was there anything else in the safe? Yes, there was. There was a copy of his 2022 speech. And is this the speech right here? Yes. Or is this a picture of the speech? Yes. So I agree that prosecutors should be given time to collect and mark whatever they need to do to make it
camera. We have a camera. You take a picture of the ball bat next to the paper.
No, but like wouldn't it be important?
No.
Also,
no. It's overly intrusive to take stuff that have nothing to do with the case. It has to do with.
What if you need to examine it for fingerprints? Fingerprints, Rob.
Okay, that's fine. Then I assume you'll be outraged when they don't take that Corvette.
The Corvette?
Yes, that was stored. That Biden publicly bragged about being stored next to the classified documents.
No, I wouldn't be mad if they don't take the Corvette.
Why? What if they need to fingerprint it?
The Corvette is not reasonably intermingled such that you could totally operate the Corvette, right?
What are you... You can't operate a ball bat without the classified information.
No. No, stop. To retrieve the baseball bat, presumably you have access to the thing which it contains. Right?
There was a garage that contained classified information that the president publicly bragged that his Corvette...
right now? What do you want them to take, the whole garage?
Yes, that's what you just said. That's what you just said. They can't take the
bat unless they take the whole garage?
That's what you just said.
No, that's not what I said.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
There's a way... If it's not even like any probative worth, right?
Like a ball bat.
No. The ball bat could have probative worth if it's intermingled next to classified documents.
How could not the Corvette? Like, let's say... So when you say intermingled, this is what you mean. Let's say that I have a desk, and on my desk is a souvenir ball bat. And then underneath my desk is files, right? And do you think they should take the ball bat then? Is that considered intermingled?
No.
So where would
this reasonable... Listen, anything I say, there's going to be grays, and you know that, Rob. You know that, and you're going to say, what if it's one molecule to the left?
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm asking you, so it would have to be in the folder? The ball bat?
No, listen, I think if the ball bat were within the immediate grabbing area, right, of the actual folders themselves.
Okay, so let's say arms reach, right? Like 4 feet arms. I don't know what your arm wingspan is. Hell, I don't know what mine is. 4 feet? Is that reasonable? Like arms reach?
It depends on where the classified information is, right?
Well, but that's what I'm saying. You're saying arms reach.
If the classified information is in a locked cabinet in the desk, and the bat never touches it, and the bat it's locked when you go in there, the bat is just like on the desk. No, I don't think it's reasonable to take the bat.
Okay.
But if the bat is inside, hang on, let me just say this. If the bat is inside the drawer, in the locked drawer with the classified information, I think you should take the bat. Okay.
But you said arm's reach. So if the filing cabinet's right here.
It's context dependent, Rob. Rob, it's context dependent.
If Trump would have said, I store these documents right next to my ball bat, should they have taken the ball bat?
If Trump said that?
Yes.
Shouldn't he? Shouldn't they?
Okay.
Oh, no. If he stipulates to it, probably not, right? If he stipulates to it,
we're not answering I think it's stupid to take it. You say so that would be a reason. Now, Joe Biden said that he stored it right next to his Corvette. Shouldn't they take it?
But the Corvette is such that, like any car, right, in that particular garage can be used without being probative at all about the knowledge level of Biden.
What are you talking about?
The Corvette itself doesn't say that, right?
But the ball bat does.
The ball bat could, right? The ball bat could.
Why are you laughing? Because you sound like a fool.
Wait.
Everyone sees the double.
Rob, you got your questions. Don't I get my questions?
Yes, ask away.
Okay. So if Trump's cellular phone, right? His cellular phone is found, the one that he currently uses, intermingled in between two top secret documents, right? Would you agree that the presence of that phone is relevant to the criminal case? Whether that phone is present or not, that is a significant detail and a significant piece of evidence.
The question would become, you would have to get a separate subpoena for that, I would think, because when you're talking about, let me finish, when you're talking about communication device.
I asked, is it relevant? Is it important?
Sure, it would be relevant.
Yes, okay.
So, ball bat.
I'm not saying this. So,
ball bat.
So, this is the logical train, Rob.
Ball bat.
Hang on a second. Something that you use or something that you put there, or something that you touched that's in a place that, where there's reasonable access between that object and the set of objects that are, the subject of the criminal investigation, that is probative of your awareness of those documents. And so the bat, I could see if the bat is stuffed in between two classified documents, do you think it would be relevant?
We already said, so that...
Yeah, it would be relevant.
I don't think so.
No. There's no way in which a bat can never be relevant to these kinds of investigation?
No.
Okay. Well, then I think you sound like a fool on the other end.
No, I don't. I don't. Right? Like, you're literally justifying them taking a ball bat, right? And we already know that you acknowledge that they gave the passport back, right?
They did.
So they said it was a mistake to take the passport, correct?
Well, because he needs to use them.
But they said it was a mistake that they took it.
Yeah, they shouldn't have taken the
right.
passport. But the existence there, its existence there is still relevant.
Oh, okay. But they shouldn't have taken it.
Well, because there's an overwhelming interest on behalf of the president.
That's interesting. What you just said, though, was that some stuff that's relevant they still shouldn't take.
Yeah, I think that was a mistakenly taken. I don't think they even were
right, like a ball bat.
That also could have been mistakenly taken. By the way, possible. It's possible. It is possible. Mistakes,
right? Now, just real quick. No.
If it's in a box. If it's in a box that says top secret,
again, we are talking about the first time in the history of this country that the most powerful federal law enforcement arm raided the home of a president. And one of the standards that we said was sort of legal jurisprudence, that things should be narrowly tailored, because when it comes to this justifying some sort of raid on the president of the United States, everything has to be by the book. And right out of the gate, it's like, oh, we made mistakes. We took the passport. Maybe it was a mistake to take the ball back.
I do not think that you've established that there's been any break in procedure in the execution of that warrant at all. Just because,
did they give the passport back?
This happens all the time in regular criminal investigations, and it's not a violation for you to have a warrant. Let's say that you there's some. I always use this case because the example is related in terms of that it's information that's seeking. The crime is information, but illegal pornography. If there were illegal pornography on your computers all over, right, the government gets to take your computers, and they're going to be overly broad. They're going to take your phone, they're going to take your computer, and you might need to use that. But the fact is, right, like whether or not you will be convicted of that crime, it requires them to examine not just necessarily the particular thing that you're looking for, but the thing and things around it. And that context actually will 100% inform whether or not they'll even charge you, right? If they could prove that the content in there wasn't...
Did they take, real quick, it's seemingly unrelated, did they take all of the hard drives of Hillary Clinton?
Of Hillary Clinton?
Yes.
No.
But wait a minute, you just told me that if there is illegal material on a device that you're using, that would be evidence that they would take, correct?
Yes, potentially, right?
Oh, yes, but they didn't when it came.
Rob, with respect to the Hillary Clinton investigation, the only proof they had with which devices were potentially holding classified information were devices that were being used that had the servers, access to the servers. And they actually did examine computers that were connected to those servers that were not the servers themselves. And so, but you asked, did they go through every hard drive? Answer, no. They went through hard drives for which they had probable cause to search.
So your example, your example of, well, if they find a device that they think there's illegal stuff, they'll take the device, isn't always true.
But the Clintons handed over a bunch of their devices. They did.
Well, they handed over some, but again, think of it that way. Think of it this way, right? Let's say that, robnoerr, we think that you have illegal material on your computers, and I say, okay, here's 4 of them, but you can't have the 5th. Good enough?
Hang on. The other ones, as you know, Rob, because I believe you read the reports, had been destroyed long ago, or had been sold, or been given away.
That's not true.
Or wiped clean.
That's not true. There were computers connected to those servers that still exist.
If you read the FBI report, they list every device that they're aware of that had connections.
So now you're changing. Now you're saying they did take every device that was in existence that was connected to the server.
You asked whether it would be justified to search every single one of Hillary Clinton's hard drives. Is that not what you said?
I said, did they?
No,
I did not. I asked you a question. I said, did they take all of Hillary's computers and servers, hard drives? Right. That's the word I used.
Is all of Hillary Clinton's hard drive equal to all of Hillary Clinton's hard drives that are connected to the server? Are they the same universe of things?
No. I guess what you're asking me, if she had a computer that was in the Bahamas when she was there, no, that's not what I was referencing, though, and you knew it.
No. You said all of, because my example, right, of the illegal pornographer, might make you think that I was okay with a general warrant of anything related to information crime.
So just to clarify, so they did take every single computer that was in Hillary's home.
In Hillary's home.
Right, that was connected to that server.
That was connected to the server. I believe they had access to every single one of them.
I'll be interested to look. I don't think that's the case, but I'll be interested.
I believe that's true. I believe that they searched them all.
Okay,
but nonetheless, I could also be wrong with that. That's my understanding, and you know as well as I do that a lot of these facts, they sort of morph into each other, and so I believe that's true that they had an inventory of all the ones that were connected.
What we can see. So that, just to sum up here, right? Yeah. What I at least appreciate that you think the underlying crime is of equal severity until we know more facts, and there should be investigations about, at least for that level. I think we also agree that the treatment from the majority of people in the mainstream media has been vastly disparate compared to the Trump and Biden.
Yes. Okay, but somewhat for good reason, right? On the obstruction stuff, I think for good reason. But on the underlying stuff, I don't think that there's...
The obstruction only exists because they decide to criminally investigate everything around it.
No, it only exists because Trump did not cooperate.
How?
And you don't want to accept that.
How?
Trump did not
Show me the proof. Show me the proof.
Trump, well, as alleged, based on public reporting, Trump had additional documents after it was represented to the government that he didn't. That Trump was not cooperating with NARA when they initially asked for documents, which is why it was referred to the DOJ.
They asked like the day he left, and it seems like when it comes to anyone else, they're not so inquisitive.
Okay,
even
NARA,
once
then don't be an idiot and omit things that are obviously in your possession that are missing. Don't be an idiot.
Like 6 years of Biden,
they don't belong to you.
Why wasn't NARA looking into those documents? They just didn't know.
They probably weren't aware of them.
So no clue. They weren't looking and saying, "Oh, we're missing obvious things." So when we find out exactly what these documents were, NARA would have never looked for these particular documents.
I'm guessing Biden took like copies of classified memos and shit like that.
I'm guessing
it is.
Well, I'm guessing that's not even what the initial investigation, as you admitted, with NARA going to the grand jury was. It was that there were presidential records. And I'll guarantee that Biden took stuff as souvenirs that they would have been easy to look at and say, hey, wait a minute, where's this thing?
We'll see.
Right? We will see. Right? It probably won't even come up because NARA's probably still not interested. They're only looking at the classified stuff.
There was very obvious things that belong to the United States of America that he shouldn't have kept onto. Like those letters.
Right. So
when
those letters are
our history. They're our tradition.
So then it's not
take them.
Right. So that's what the subpoena was about. Our history. Now, just curious. Do you think there should now be a subpoena?
No, that was not what the subpoena was about. The subpoena was about both government property and classified information.
Not initially.
At that point, it was. No. The subpoena was they requested boxes. The boxes were given. In the boxes, there's classified stuff. Refer to DOJ. DOJ asked for stuff. DOJ gets a subpoena, and they asked for both classified information and for.
So they started the investigation because presidential record stuff weren't accusing it of classified. Now they know that Biden and Obama, etc., probably also have improperly taken presidential stuff, but they didn't say shit for 6 years. They weren't interested.
For Obama, I think you're probably referencing the fact that his presidential library, which is.
Well, it's not just that. I'm saying me and you both know that all of them have shit at their homes. We all know it. You admitted it.
You. No. I said that as a matter of course, as a rule, this is the way you asked me. Should NARA behave as though everyone does that? And I think that as a matter of course, it's hard for me to be like NARA should just like wait and not be active. So as a matter of course, I believe that NARA should be doing that. But I don't think that necessarily every president brings home president's record. If that's true, right? If that's true, maybe there's a disparate awareness of that because of the nature of the content that they take and their awareness of it, right? There were reports, I think as early as before he left office, that he was fucking around with records, right? That he was ripping up documents.
Right. Again, right.
And so don't be an idiot, Trump.
Right. There were reports he was colluding with Russia, but that was China, or that he was colluding with Russia, but that was Hillary. She was the one colluding. No investigation. Though.
We're not going to ground this out.
Well, no, but again, this is what the problem is. There are all these people surrounding Trump that are constantly trying to sabotage him, and then the FBI and the DOJ are like, "Well, people surrounding Trump are saying he's doing illegal things, so we'll criminally investigate him."
Can't you say he shouldn't have taken that information? Can't you say it? He shouldn't have taken the Kim Jong-un letters. He shouldn't have fucking taken the presidential letter from Obama. He shouldn't have fucking taken classified information. I say that about Biden. He should not have. Can you say that about Trump?
Sure, he shouldn't have, and he probably shouldn't eat past 9 p.m. I find them both to be about equal severity, right? Like,
Really?
It's like, right.